Gaetz subsequently withdrew from the AG's position, and he has not announced any intent to return back to Congress. So they confirm, yes, we lost our jurisdiction. You guys allowed Liz Cheney to lie to everybody in the House of Representatives. And furthermore, I have written you 13 times regarding the leaks springing from your investigation. And you can see my correspondence that I've already attached to you as Exhibit B. In a final holiday smear, the Ethics Committee dropped the report on Matt Gaetz. And Matt Gaetz has not taken this one lying down. You can see this is the report. We'll see what's inside. And there's also, what you'll notice, a dissenting viewpoint in here. And a big question that is coming up throughout this entire conversation is jurisdiction. Do they have it over Matt Gaetz? Since he's no longer a congressman, he resigned, he's not running again. Why are they releasing smear reports on him in the final hour? Right before Christmas, no less. Now, Gaetz is not lying down, like I said. Now, he filed this lawsuit, you can see, same day the report got released, but it is mostly going to be moot now because what he was asking for was an injunction, and the injunction would have stopped the congressional committee from releasing the report. They've also already done that, so the court really can't unring that bell, can't pull the report back inside. And so Gaetz now may have other options, we'll see. And as we go through the report, let's pay close attention to the credibility of the witnesses that are inside the report. As you can see, Matt Gaetz posted this. He says, look, here's another one of these ethics witness people who is now going to be making up this report. They're saying that she was an alleged prostitute, and she claims that she was indeed not actually that. Okay, they say that she was one of those. And when it was discussed during the depot, she said no. So here's the question to this woman. Says, were you escorting? Question. Were you working? What were you doing? Objection. Form. There's like 3 questions in that one sentence. Can you please break that down, dummy? Answer from this woman. I wouldn't consider it any of those. There was a lot of times where I did not get paid for being there. In that time, I thought a lot of these people were my friends. Okay. So you wouldn't characterize anything you did in 2017 as sex work? Objection. Form, but you can answer. She says no, it wasn't that type of work. Okay. So she was there for other reasons, and maybe they had intercourse. And this is a very similar pattern we see, well, the world and Congress and Washington, D.C. and Diddy situations where people are traveling around, people are getting paid for different things. Part of Diddy's trafficking charge was that somebody flew across state lines to have intercourse. That's trafficking. An adult person, not under duress, voluntarily got on a plane, flew over there, trafficking. Okay. They said it was a model who just got on an airplane, flew across state lines and had intercourse on his own volition. But same thing is happening here. And you can see where they want this to go. They want it to be trafficking. So, oh, Gaetz paid you to come across state lines and have intercourse with him? Trafficking, just like Diddy. What is that? A non-bondable offense. Diddy can't get out of custody. They were trying to get Gaetz on that too. This woman didn't bite on it. Now, here was another post that Gaetz was sharing. Gaetz said, the quote from this woman, I never charged anyone anything. So the question to this woman, no. What I'm saying is, question, is if you're having intercourse with Gaetz versus, I don't know, some guy who's not as attractive as Gaetz, would you charge a different, well, I never charged anyone anything. Okay. It was just given to me. Okay. Like I was there, had intercourse, I got money. Object to the form. Okay. Would that be a different amount of payment based upon that? Objection from 2 people. She says, I never charged anyone anything. It was all their choice to give me whatever they wanted. So I was never asking for money, never sending them an invoice. Here's more testimony. Matt Gaetz says, this is more testimony you're not going to see in this little report that we'll look at. This is clearly not prostitution under any conceivable definition, which is why Gaetz says I was never charged with a crime, but instead he just got smeared in a giant report from political opponents. Now, you said before that you got $400 for Matt Gaetz for that. I did. All right. Were you promised that ahead of time or anything? No, we never discussed money. Okay. So it was after the fact. It wasn't something that was set up. And you've seen prostitution cases, right? Where you see the undercover cops in those TV shows and they're there and they get an agreement, exchange of money, and then boom, they all pop in and the guy's like, oh man, so close. And they get him. It's not good. Now that didn't happen here. Gaetz was like, wow, that was incredible. Here's $400, go get a massage, whatever. So that's Matt Gaetz. And Matt Gaetz has responded to this in a lawsuit saying these are defamatory allegations and more. But let me show you what the report says. This came out today. You can see a report of the Committee on Ethics, which is hilarious to think that anyone in Congress has ethics. Now, they write that there's 2 parts to this. There's the initial report, and then there's a little smaller segment that has its dissenting views in there from people who are taking a different take. They say, in accordance with the House rules and the Committee on Ethics, we hereby submit the following report, and we have the views of the chairman on behalf of the dissenting committee members. So the chairman and some dissenting members. Now, we don't know their names. Here's what they tell us. On April 9th, the committee announced it was investigating Matt Gaetz at the request of the DOJ. 2021, Biden's DOJ. The committee deferred its review during the 117 Congress. So the Department of Justice was investigating Matt Gaetz, and Congress deferred while they were doing that. They said, okay, you got first priority on this. After it was organized for the 118th Congress, the committee then reauthorized its investigation into Gaetz. After it was organized for the 118th, they reauthorized its investigation. And the House of Representatives was narrowly the Republicans starting on January 3rd. It's the Congress that we're in now until January 3rd, 2025. Specifically, the committee undertook a review of allegations of Gaetz. We got misconduct, inappropriate images, misused state identification funds, improper gratuity, all sorts of bribes and campaign funds and more. Then there were allegations of other things like misconduct and drug use and more. Personal relationship, and they say Gaetz obstructed the government during this. So then on November 14th of this year, not long ago, Matt Gaetz resigned from the House because he was going to be nominated for AG. Now, as a result of this, the committee, look, they admit, lost jurisdiction to continue its investigation. Gaetz subsequently withdrew from the AG's position, and he has not announced any intent to return back to Congress. So they confirm, yes, we lost our jurisdiction. The committee has typically not released its findings after losing jurisdiction in a matter. Look at that. How come you're going to do it now? However, there are a few prior instances where the committee has determined that it was in the public interest to release its findings after a member resigned from Congress. They give us footnote 2. They say, see, we found this other staff report back from 1980 and some other report from 1990, and this was involving Donald Lukens. William H. Boner got nailed on that one. And in the matter of Lukens, so two other people, it looks like, in 1990 and 1987, Lukens and Boner got in trouble, and they released reports after they left. In sum, the committee found substantial evidence of the following. All right, Matt Gaetz paid women, Matt Gaetz, 17-year-old girl. And let me just say this, just to be ultra clear on this. If allegations of these things are true, I do not condone those actions or believe in prostitution or obviously anything with anybody underage. Those are criminal allegations, okay? Prostitution is illegal. 17-year-olds, illegal. Possessing illegal drugs is illegal, okay? We're not condoning any of these things. But this is not a criminal indictment. This is a congressional indictment. This has not been presented to a grand jury or anything. Who knows what any of these people did to come to this conclusion, a substantial evidence of the following. What the hell does that even mean? Substantial evidence of what? Now, in 2018, Gaetz arranged for his chief of staff to assist a woman getting a passport. Gaetz knowingly sought to impede and obstruct the committee's investigation. So they say Gaetz has acted in a manner that represents and reflects discreditably upon the House. Yeah, okay. Now, based upon the above, the committee concluded there was substantial evidence that he violated House rules and state and federal laws and other standards of conduct, including about, these crimes and the provision of special favors. Now, the committee did not find sufficient evidence to conclude that Gaetz violated the trafficking statute, which is wild. Gaetz being arrested, held on non-bondable release conditions. Although Gaetz did cause the transportation of women across state lines for purposes of commercial intercourse, the committee did not find evidence that any of those women were under 18 at the time of travel, nor did the committee find sufficient evidence to conclude that the commercial act were induced by force, fraud, or coercion. All right. So they're like, oh, so close to Diddy, but not exactly. So we can't get him on that. Now, Gaetz was uncooperative throughout the committee's review. Why would he cooperate with you while he's under federal criminal investigation? He provided minimal documentation, his right to remain silent. He also did not agree to a voluntary interview. Of course not. On July 11th, the committee issued a subpoena to Gaetz. He did not appear despite having getting notice of it for the same. Now, the committee then sent Gaetz a set of written questions. He issued a public response that ignored everything. Despite Gaetz's claims to the contrary, the committee's singular mission is to protect the integrity of the House. Gag me on that one. To protect the integrity of the House. Okay. You guys allowed Liz Cheney to lie to everybody in the House of Representatives. Now, not necessarily this Congress, but you did. Now, when faced with serious public allegations against the member, the committee has shared goal to disprove those allegations. Based on the above, they say there is substantial evidence that he violated House rules, did a bunch of stuff. Impermissible gifts, special favors, the P word, other things. Now, the statement says that there was no funding authorized in this report and the report is over. So So here's the dissent. Here is Michael Gaetz with other dissenting committee members. Now, I write on behalf of the members of the committee who do not support the release of the report. We believe and remain steadfast in the position that they lost jurisdiction to release to the public any substantive work that was about Matt Gaetz in response to his resignation. Now, while we do not challenge the committee's findings, so they're saying all that's basically true, we take great exception that the majority deviated from our standards and voted to release a report on an individual over whom you have no jurisdiction. You have not done anything like that since 2006. Now, the House rules give the committee jurisdiction over current members. Consistent with these rules, when a member who is under investigation by the committee leaves the House, the committee's standard practice is to close its investigation and make no further statements. We do not believe the rules authorize the committee to continue or expand its jurisdiction as it sees fit. Any precedent to the contrary is extremely rare, inconsistent with the rules, and outweighed by the vast majority of matters, too numerous to list, where you took no action after you lost jurisdiction. So they're singling him out. Now, Gaetz resigned from Congress, withdrew his consideration after winning again, not going to be seated again, and you decided to republish this report because it's an attempt to weaponize your process. We believe that you're operating outside of your jurisdiction, and it's a dangerous departure. And we joined the views of the committee in their prior statement. They said to the extent that any of the public reporting on this matter came from unauthorized disclosures, which are damaging and harmful to the committee's work, cannot do that. So the committee needs its confidentiality to do its job. But here is what Gaetz says in response to this. He filed a 40-page lawsuit same day the report was released, and his lawsuit is an attempt to stop the report from coming out. And he wrote the following. He says, all right, I was a member of Congress from January 2017 all the way to November 13. Now, during a portion of that time, the Ethics Committee began an investigation related to previously unsubstantiated allegations of misconduct. After resigning, they then improperly continued their investigation, and they voted, apparently, to publicly release the reports. They didn't even give any notice to Matt Gaetz or anybody. We learned that on December 22nd, just the day before he filed this lawsuit, that they intended to release the information as soon as 9 a.m. Now, their apparent intention to release its report, after explicitly acknowledging that it lacks jurisdiction even in the release, saying it's not following its own constitutional due process, not adhering to its own rules. And this is an unprecedented overreach that is going too far. Saying Matt Gaetz has standing, saying that former members of Congress do maintain standing. Okay, it's not like us suing them. He can challenge congressional actions that threaten personal injury to his rights. There was another case called Powell where the court found, yeah, you can sue. You can sue to get back pay. And here he faces a concrete injury from the committee's ultra-virus action, meaning outside the law. And yeah, he's not a member of Congress anymore, but they're harming him. Now, this case is fundamentally distinct from other cases where other people have been expelled from Congress. And courts often will decline to review these types of things. However, the present case is not challenging a disciplinary action, unlike these other cases. So you can hear our claim. We do have standing. They tell us that Matt Gaetz is a private citizen, okay? He's a former representative from Florida. Michael Gaetz is a defendant Republican from Mississippi. He's on the committee. Now, they made their first public statement about investigating Matt Gaetz way back, April 9, 2021. The Committee of Ethics, they said, the committee is aware of public allegations that Matt Gaetz may have engaged in misconduct on the House floor. And so the committee, pursuant to the House rules, will begin an investigation. Great. So that investigation starts April 9th. Then on February 15th, the Department of Justice advised Matt Gaetz it was not pursuing criminal charges against him. DOJ investigated this. No charges for the trafficking, for obstruction, or any other federal charges. Now, the allegations investigated by the DOJ were the same ones the committee was investigating. Then we noticed that as soon as the DOJ ended their report, they were not going to bring any charges. Guess what? The committee picks it back up. May 23rd, they're like, oh man, they didn't charge him. I guess we better investigate him ourselves then. And then we'll just say he did the trafficking or very close to that, even though the DOJ didn't charge him with any crimes. So then on November 13th, he resigned from Congress. He was nominated for AG. And then after he resigned on December 5th, Gaetz is out of Congress. Then the defendants voted to publicly release reports related to the investigation into Gaetz throughout the media. Despite the media coverage, they pushed a press release on the same date without confirmation of their decision to publicly release information to the plaintiffs related to Matt Gaetz' investigation. Now, remember, there was like a back and forth. They're like, are we going to release it or not release it? We didn't really know, and they decided no. Now, at no time has Matt Gaetz been notified that they were going to publicly release any of this stuff. At no time did Matt Gaetz, has he been provided copies of any of the materials at all? He has had no opportunity to even respond to these conclusions of these congresspeople. Now, Gaetz has frequently and vehemently declared his innocence regarding the alleged misconduct, and he's entitled to that as an American, and requested defendants cease their investigation and provide him appropriate due process rights. Now, they've been unresponsive to his demands. On December 22nd, then, just one day before they filed this lawsuit, Matt Gaetz learned of the potential that they're going to publicly release a report at 9 a.m. the next day. Despite media reports, the ethics committee, who apparently have no ethics or notice at all, no care for due process whatsoever, didn't even tell him. He found out through the media. The investigation by the ethics committee into Matt Gaetz are governed by the rules of the Committee on Ethics, and their own reports explicitly states it loses jurisdiction when they resign. The limitation has been consistently applied in many cases. In fact, here you go. Stephen Palazzo didn't release a report. How about this one? Fortenberry lost its jurisdiction. Hagendorn, no more. Representative Reed, gone. Here's another one. And it goes on. Now, the consistent pattern is that you lose jurisdiction. It's been repeatedly affirmed. You can't release it. So we know this. Now, on May 24th, about a few months ago, plaintiff provided statements to the Congress Ethics Committee, and those statements are adopted here as statements of fact. They responded in a letter. They say, all right, Ethics Committee, you allege that Gaetz engaged in misconduct, including violations of federal law related to trafficking and R and the P. This allegation, says Gaetz, is false. These allegations were investigated by the DOJ, and the investigation was completely dropped. You are eminently aware that this was a thorough investigation that exonerated me. But because numerous leaks from your committee, they suggest you're re-interviewing witnesses that were already interviewed by the DOJ, and you are seeking to release the DOJ case file. You also allege that Gaetz may have engaged in illicit drug use, including the distribution of coke, ganja, and other things, including commercial activity. Well, guess what? This allegation is false. You allege that Gaetz may have shared inappropriate images or videos on the House floor, including some nudes. False. You allege that Gaetz may have misused state ID records or unauthorized review of Florida driver's license records. Also false. You said that Gaetz may have converted campaign funds, including for drugs and intercourse. This allegation is false, and how dare you? The Federal Election Commission investigated allegations of misuse of campaign funds, and they found those to be baseless too. They voted unanimously to hold that there was no reason to believe any of that, and that I converted campaign funds to personal use. Not that they just believed my story. There was no evidence to refute it. See attached as Exhibit A if you want to read more on that. Gaetz continues. You allege that Gaetz may have accepted a bribe, improper gratuity, or impermissible gift, including through travel-related expenses to the Bahamas, like Fannie Willis. Well, guess what? This allegation is false. Again, these allegations were investigated by the DOJ. No charges were brought against me at all. You have received voluminous documentary evidence from me demonstrating the falsity of this allegation. And also, to my detriment, says Gaetz, your committee, with publicly reported Democratic staff at the helm, reopened this apparently endless investigation this Congress without any complaint by anyone. And it seems your investigation exists largely as a platform to release harmful leaks about me, often falsely implying improper conduct on my part. And as you know, Rules 18 and 19 of the committee contemplate establishing an investigative subcommittee for matters wherein members could be compelled to offer testimony. And furthermore, I have written you 13 times regarding the leaks springing from your investigation. And you can see my correspondence that I've already attached to you as Exhibit B. Now, you have failed to stop these leaks, remediate them, or even to slow them down. Thus, I demand that the committee address this issue prior to me providing any oral testimony to the committee. Gaetz and his team continue. They say throughout its investigation, this ethics committee has systematically denied Gaetz fundamental protections required by its own rules. You haven't given Gaetz any access to any evidence that you gathered during the investigation. You haven't given him any meaningful opportunity to present any exculpatory evidence that would show his innocence. He has not been able to subpoena relevant witnesses or documents. No opportunity, meaningful opportunity to respond to specific allegations. And so, upon information and belief, it is their belief that the ethics committee's intention to release the reports that they are filled with untruthful and defamatory information about Gaetz, which if publicly released would significantly damage his standing and reputation in the community. Once released, the damage to Gaetz's reputation and standing would be immediate, severe, and irreversible, which is why they released it immediately. Once released, the damage, immediate, already happened, then the committee's findings could carry an imprimatur of official congressional action, like Congress found this. No, it's just an ethics committee. Media coverage would be immediate and widespread. No adequate remedy exists to retract or to correct information once released, and so the damage is going to be clearly done. Now, they say we've got some different claims for relief here. This is a violation of Matt Gaetz' constitutional rights. Okay, the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment prohibits the government from depriving a citizen of their liberty without due process of law. It's also a violation of privacy. It's also defamation under DC common law, saying that the release of the statements without giving Gaetz an opportunity to review any of this or to respond to any of this would constitute defamation under DC. And they exceed their congressional and statutory authority to do any of this anyways. And so they ask in the lawsuit that was filed today, which is now moot, everybody's home for Christmas, issue a temporary restraining order to stop them from publicly releasing the report. Too late. They didn't even give Gaetz an opportunity to even look at it before they published it. Set an expedited briefing schedule before the full consideration of this litigation. There's obviously not going to be a briefing schedule because it's moot now. Any temporary restraining order, issue without bond, and award us attorney's fees and more. So, man, they filed this. These guys were probably just like banging out this filing to get it submitted immediately and to try to stop it from coming out.